The vanishing hitchhiker is a common story in which people travelling by vehicle meet with or are accompanied by a hitchhiker who subsequently vanishes without explanation, often from a moving vehicle. The following are 4 true stories where various drivers and motorcyclists have encountered the same ghostly young woman on the M9 in South Africa. Anton Lagrange. One of South Africa's longest roads is the N9, which runs from Golden Shores of the southern coast right up to the Harden Northern Cape province. It is also home to one of the country's most famous ghostly hitchhikers. On the 12th of April 1968, a Volkswagen was driving between Uniondale and Willowmore on the N9 road to Willowmore, near the town of Uniondale, which was in the semi-desert area of Karoo in South Africa. Driving the car was a young off-duty Air Force Lieutenant Giel Oberholzer and his fiancée, 22-year-old Maria Charlotte Roux, who was asleep on the back seat. Lieutenant Oberholzer suddenly lost control of the car during a storm and his fiancée Maria died in the accident. The first to arrive at the crash scene was Officer Pat McDonald from the Uniondale police station and found 22-year-old Maria Roux laying against an embankment. He could see that she had obviously died of serious head injuries. Maria was described as short with long hair and was wearing dark green trousers and a duffel coat. 8 years later, on Friday the 16th of April 1976, at around 7:15 p.m, a young man by the name of Anton Lagrange from Oudtshoorn, about 122 kilometres from Uniondale, was driving from Willowmore to Uniondale to attend a party in the neighbouring town of Uniondale. As he was driving, he saw a young woman standing by the side of the road. Lagrange described the young woman being short, with brown hair, and wore dark trousers and a long jacket. The weather was starting to get cold, so he stopped the car and asked the young woman if she'd like a lift, and she got into the back seat of the car. The young man then continued to drive to Uniondale and attempted to engage in a conversation with the young woman, but she did not speak. However, when he turned his head to look back at her, he found that she was no longer in the car. Anton Lagrange immediately drove to Uniondale police station, fearing the worst for the young woman. After describing what had happened to PC Snorri Podgita, he initially doubted his story, but nevertheless the officer decided to follow him back up the road where the accident took place to try and locate the woman, fearing she may have fallen out of the car. As the police officer was driving behind Lagrange, he saw him reach the spot where the incident had taken place, and saw the rear door of the man's car open and then close by itself. It was at this stage that Lagrange quickly slammed on his brakes, and after exiting his vehicle ran back towards the police car, yelling that the girl had suddenly reappeared sitting in the back seat and staring at him in the rearview mirror. Believing that Lagrange was playing a trick on him, he requested that he drive a bit further, but this time asked him to leave his interior light on so he could clearly see that it was not him opening and closing the door. Officer Podgita again followed behind in the police car and again saw the car door open and then close by itself. This time he was so disturbed by what he'd seen that he and Lagrange immediately returned to the police station where Officer Podgita closed the police station for the night. To give validation to what Anton Lagrange had experienced, a local journalist by the name of Janie Mayer managed to obtain a photograph of Maria Roux from the young woman's mother and showed it to Lagrange, along with a selection of other photographs showing young women. Amazingly, Lagrange was able to pick Maria's face out from amongst the other photos of women, confirming that she was the one that he had stopped to offer a lift to. Corporal Dory van Jaarsveld. On Easter weekend in 1978, Army Corporal Dory van Jaarsveld was doing his national service at Oudtshoorn Army Base, 100 miles from Uniondale. He was on his way there to spend the holidays with his girlfriend. His journey took him along the N9. When he reached the intersection, he saw somebody standing on the side of the road. Just as he turned to the right, she lifted her arms up as if to say, "Aren't you going to stop?" Dory stopped his motorcycle and offered a lift to the young woman with dark hair and dark clothing. She climbed on, putting his spare helmet on her head and an earpiece in for some music. He asked her to hold on tight around his waist so that he can feel if something goes wrong. After about 2 kilometres, the bike had a twitch and he thought she'd fallen off. He turned around to see if he still had someone with him, but there was nobody. He turned around and went back with the motorcycle to see if there was anybody lying along the road. Strangely though, he saw the spare helmet was back on his luggage rack and his earpiece was left dangling. The young man was badly shaken, wondering what had happened to the girl, and drove on to Uniondale. Corporal Van Jaarsveld later described the girl being short with dark hair and was wearing trousers and a jacket. At the time he hadn't realised that she could possibly have been a spirit, but at the same time it felt strange when she was on the bike. And the next time he placed the earpiece in his ear, he found they no longer worked. André Coetzee. 2 years later, on Good Friday 1980, motorcyclist André Coetzee, 20, also had a terrifying experience while riding along the N9 past Uniondale looking for a friend who he believed had run out of petrol in the desert. Coetzee all of a sudden felt hands around his waist, and he could feel pressure, and as he looked down, he saw hands around his waist. He was extremely frightened and felt he must get away from that place. He then accelerated to about 150 kilometers an hour, but not before she slapped the side of his head before disappearing. He said he never saw anyone standing on the road. He then drove to a local cafe in Uniondale for help and spoke to cafe owner Ginetta Meyer in a panicked state. Since then, a number of unconfirmed sightings had been claimed, all involving a young female hitchhiker standing alongside the lonely stretch of road between Uniondale and Willamore, who is given a lift, then inexplicably disappears a few kilometres down the road. And some have reported car doors opening and closing, laughter and a chill in the air. Apparently the scent of apple blossoms is apparently the only reminder she leaves behind for the shop drivers. There have been many other reports saying that the woman said that she wanted to go to number 2 Porter Street, but she never stayed long enough to reach her destination. Danny de Koch. While on his honeymoon in 1983, Danny had a personal encounter with the hitchhiker ghost. He claimed that he and his wife had stopped by the side of the road to take a rest. His wife was asleep in the passenger seat. It was late at night and there was no wind or even a slight breeze. He got out and walked around the car, which was a VW Beetle, to go to the toilet. Suddenly, a rushing wind came rolling down the road, but then went quiet when it reached the car. He got the fright of his life and ran back to the driver's side to be met by someone sitting in his seat. He then ran back to the other side to pull his wife from the car. He believed that they were being hijacked, but after waking his wife, he discovered the person had vanished. They left in a hurry, and then about 500 metres down the road, they saw a woman dressed in a gown, waving at them to slow down. He reduced speed in case it was someone in need of help, but before they reached her, she had disappeared. They stopped at a garage in Uniondale and told a stranger about their experience, and that was the first time they'd learned about the ghost, and chills ran up and down his spine. Many years later, people on social media have also claimed to have had personal experience with the Uniondale hitchhiker ghost. However, according to the residents of Uniondale, a ghost has not been seen for a long time.